want to do another blog spot because you never know in these weird times what wardy-dardy-da is going on. Basically, arrival crime. It's like this idea is, the way I see it is like people. You got Christians, and you got people that bought all the hype they were fed, like thou shalt not kill. They're good people, Christian kids. They're getting on with it, and they have their own set of beliefs, and they're getting on. And then you've got other people that are marginalised and heavily dependent on industrial for wages and stuff, and they're desensitised. So you've got countercultures against that. And it is what it is. A lot of people see this is indifference, isn't it? Turning blind eyes, especially America, drone culture, drones and seeking destroyers and stuff. And that's just some bullshit that is just, how does that slide? How can you call yourself God-fearing Catholic or Christian nations? They're not. So you've always got the movers and shakers and the artists of the world that are trying to counterculture that. Arrival Prime was basically just a solution for homeless deaths originally, a converted van with a wet room that would take people to the higher buildings. And then after that it just started thriving and thriving in my mind and kept growing and growing and growing. I met 10 charities and I said engineers could be hooked up to these, that would solve that. And the marginalised, getting the CVs done and getting moving and shaking. If you linked up this supposed human engineer, social engineer, with a piece of handheld kit linked to hostels, hotels and industrial across the world, like a network, basically like your own personal support worker, that would encourage like farming, woofing, hemp farming, fruit picking globally, and just get people, the people that actually run those farms, just paying their travel and then providing an NVQ and getting free labour via it because they have to put in hours and things like that. Then you're taking down the need for that marginalised wage job within an industrial complex that is in a way demonic while it still handles weaponry. I just want to make it a fun planet if I had my way with my paradigm. And it's like people can go around like that, but it starts with you. And there's like EUs and talking on these stages, people cracking on. Whatever, I want to be in the EU. Most people I know want to be in the EU. They want to be in the world. They want to be global citizens since the birth of the internet. Move with the times. It's like it's also redundant and retrograde what we have to listen to. And it's highly depressing and it's psychosomatic and it wears people down. Because it's old. It's like we saw our traumatised grandparents and shit that did your evil doings for banks that hated Jews. That's all it was. It was a banking thing, the money, the wealth thing side of it that got the media into its flurries and got the people behind it. Ignorance was a thing back then. I'd like to think that we've evolved to the point that it's not there anymore. So move with the times and keep jumping forward. If you could have a social work franchisee brand, it's a self-maintaining thing, canvassing like they do for charity. There are people that can get it directly to them, so you haven't got to work for the government. It balances the playing field because you've just got a conglomerate and it's not fair. If you have that's making 100% transparent media, then you're taking out the room for corruption. You're cutting through the shit straight in. It's like, if you got a case where, like for example, I was arrested after Unity March, if I could turn to a source like that and they could make the publicity for it, you wouldn't have injustices within the system. Might have offended a member of court in court to the DBS that reads like what mine does. It was a basic drunk and disorderly at the end of the day. It shouldn't have added any of that effect, but it was so detrimentally scarring, which makes you work harder for a street presence that can be a street savvy wise presence with 100% transparency. It's a van with branding, advertising space on the side of it with a rec room inside that's giving out kit to the homeless, sofa surfing app. It goes on. There's incentives because you'll be taught a bit of close protection if you're one of the host people. They've already got things like this already running. If you pick up a big issue, they've got a spare room. If you've got a spare room, you can offer out that service already to young people, so that's already there. It's nice and it's building a sense of community, and if it's got the media transparency, that's an extra level of reassurance. So in theory, all what I'm talking about is just like all the fundamentals are there. Prince's Trust encourages like MVQs and travel. Can you just like even BA and all the British Airways, would they just let people travel for free if they are doing one of these farming schemes that is helping you work? Basically, it's like the end of money to a certain degree. It's just charity, just global charity linked in, and it's Arrival Prime, power to the people right on time. In theory, if you can employ people to travel, they're not going to turn to, I want to see some of the world to be the best. Be the best is not using a weapon, full stop. It's a revolution of mind, heart and soul. Corruption within the system was always corruption in the system. The dirty players were always the dirty players. The opium wars were drugs wars. People don't even make the association. Crack London got its dirty mitts on me quite early in life. I just learned the other day that people that I knew then, the reason for the total chaos in my mind and my life and not believing who did what when woo hop to get your sympathy and work you like these snaky entities are actually crack users, and I only just learned that the other day. What has London become? It is fallen place. So when I look at certain players on the world stage, I get this sort of sixth sense now. I think like, oh yeah, probably Hermage probably might have the odd crack pipe here and there. It's normalisation within their cultural stance. What goes on behind closed doors stuff. You have no conceptual idea. We're just presented with a screen, and what I've learned more and more in life is like, pop that dream. It's actually corruption that runs those Britain, we are never going to be slaves Christianity show, and we're just the slaves to a total fictitious version of actually what goes on behind the scenes. Now get your minds around that whilst you're digesting that, and then just think grassroots up humanity. Those mugs that just bought into the Christian ideologies of thou should be charitable, that should do all those things. They're the people that actually succeed. I'd like to think they are the BA, British Airways, they are the airlines, they are the ferries. They would give Prince's Trust style, yes, go for it kid, go and do your NVQ here. And there's no age limit on this shit, because they're people that suffer. And I've been like joined Streetwise Opera, Cardboard Citizens, Choir with No Name, all those charities. I met all those people after actually coming up with the original idea, just validating it more and more. So basically, familiarise yourself with Arrival Prime and as a concept, even as a piece of design art with a novelty donation point. It was a basketball net. There's a basic bones of the idea that I made about 8 years ago with the help of an ex who put the video together for me. But since then, it's left out all the detailing. It's like it come about also because the Guardian buildings, when they take over a property, they get as many rooms out of it as possible, and those buildings are only getting guarded because of sometimes international squatters that come over and actually want to just travel free. There are proper subcultures all over the place that you have no conceptual idea about. They're lovely blokes all having barbecues, and they're mostly musicians, and they got no money, but they still want to travel and have a quality of life because they've got mental health, as they would call it. They like to say it's mental health if you don't work within the tax bracket and system, but no, actually it's because people are no good with numbers, they've got autism, all these different things, factors. So the people in those squats, there's an old guy with a dog, give him a caretaking job, because you're getting letters of complaint saying you're not looking after the rubbish since the Guardian's come in. And they're paying rent, and they have the audacity to say to the council, oh, you have to pay 10 quid. Yeah, and then they get 300 quid a month. But there's one person who should be taking care, and that should be the most vulnerable member that really needed a place to squat, and he's just there as a link. He can be that person, and he can be doing that, and he can have his own little literature thing and start up his own sort of like little. He's got work and he's got accommodation for a little while just to get himself in that system, because he wants that stability. You see in the picture across towns and cities now, how you, and then inadvertently, I don't mean to be a threat to the government, but it just is. It just is. If you got everybody to rely on it, and it's beautiful like that. And the last part that's just literally evolved recently because of COVID is because people were talking about funerals being compromised. Imagine if losing someone in this time was the case. Well then, an independent link in your community that can help people go to that home, treat the body. If they used to, you don't have to drain blood, that come about, and sometimes it's a bit creepy. They steal your dead to steal it back to the same person. It come about in plague times when things were that, but the contagion isn't spreadable because that person can't sneeze or cough, so in theory it's bullshit, but that's what they were doing. And there's an episode on the Midnight Gospel on Netflix which will talk about these things that most people that become enlightened or go on shamanic journeys and get out of the industrial picture start thinking about. Captain Fantastic stuff. There's a film on Netflix also. So it's alternative people that are trying to shake the world into a different paradigm, if you will. So those people could come to houses and it would be like an Irish wake. You keep the body there. Employ him to take event staff, security. How many people are out there freewheeling with 0-hour contracts now? 0-hour contracts. So they are in a port, this person's got that, okay, I've heard of this, go to this person's house, they can get to that person's house, they can hire someone, sort it out in a different way. Less, your death is coming, you need to prepare for it, it's going to cost you thousands. I mean, in cases where there was none, please, just, there must be a pyramid here with wealth that actually wants to provide straight away, like Ellen DeGeneres' generosity, you know, £10,000 here and there, pay for this person's public land funeral, event staff for safety, and, you know, do what they used to do in Stonehenge and places, and burn bodies, Viking funerals. Why are they all behind walls now, keeping the 1% happy? They're getting rich and people are just getting wages. Maybe they don't want to work 9 to 5. Maybe their qualifications should be employed by a presence on the street, which should, in effect, even the police could use all this technology. It will be documented, 100% transparent, so no room for error. It doesn't need police. It doesn't need this phlegmatic kind of thing. It's a branded social worker just facilitating all the links in the community. And we see in a picture, Thrive design is beautiful. It will work. It will make everyone friggin' well happy, in theory. And I think even the government should subsidise it. They should, like, kids with aptitude for just want to going into care, CV working, and maybe like giving them driving licenses, ex-security, ex-police. It would work for on so many levels. You're just meeting, greeting people. And lastly, one thing, they're closing down the rainbow centres, all these different places that are like citizens' advice for people. And that's basically what it is as well. It's like, document if someone's got an injustice, like boom, it's the registered call centre. It's like, oh, we've got this going on, a little bit of a media behind it, jig it, provide legal aid if you think it's a quality, a thing that needs help in sometimes injustices. I like to think we're evolving together, and it's like the police are becoming less fascist, and money isn't such a brutal, soul destroying, immune system destroying thing over pennies in a grand scheme of what really life is about. When you look at the hydrogen colliders, the Pamelas, the operas of the world, literally spending billions just to shoot little molecules around a circle, and then they say that we might have economic collapses and shit, and does it really matter? Bitcoin is another bone there, like a sort of safety net for people to trade in without the, what is it? It's virtual money. Money started off in homes as a rock in your house that you did a little line on when you traded. I mean, it's a concept, it's not even, it's just towers and stock markets. You've seen The Wolf of Wall Street as well. So it's like that kind of attitude toward it. It should all be brought down for you, and that's what I attempt to always do in my evolving state since leaving my job as a town centre warden a decade ago, going to a secret garden culture, meeting people, then going on to be a litter picker, then going to another festival, and then just meeting a whole ethos of people around the green fields, the ideologies of the independent thinker, bring it together in a community and do it grassroots up. No room for corruption.